poetry workshop. I once had the great misfortune of attending a poetry workshop in Cheltenham. The facilitator will remain anonymous. His theme was interview poems, and he brought along 3 examples. You will be hearing from us shortly by U.A. Fanthorpe, The Applicant by Sylvia Plath, and As the Team's Head Brass by Edward Thomas. I thought the first 2 poems to be almost entirely devoid of merit, but the people present gushed with appreciation of their form and meaning, even though they seemed to think that there was little substantive meaning to gush about. Most of what was said was too obvious to bear speaking, and the rest was little more than a reading into of the texts of the prejudices and fads of the commentators. Fanthorpe's poem was queer, to put it mildly. It wasn't clear whether it represented one voice of the interview or both, and if both, how the words were to be apportioned to each voice. The others present gleefully assumed that the layout on the page indicated 2 voices, even though the supposed responses were never answers to the questions posed. The fact that the questions became more and more ridiculous as the poem progressed was simply taken as showing the wickedness of the interviewer. Either this poem is simply trash, or else Fanthorpe is attempting to make some point about the character of human communication, but if the latter, then the point in question escapes me. It was taken for granted that Plath's The Applicant was a feminist poem pointing out the inadequacy of the male of the species, even though the pronoun he is never used, and the pronoun she is used only once, and in such a way as to make it entirely unclear whether the interviewer or interviewer, if either, is female. The others loved the repetition of the phrase, "Will you marry it?" and didn't question whether this meant something other than matrimony, even though the impersonal pronoun it made this rather implausible. The obscure significance of the 6-line prologue was entirely passed over, whereas it seems to me that the question, if there's nothing missing from your body, how can we give you a thing, was crucial to the understanding of the poem. No one else noticed the strange thrice-fold 11-line structure of the poem, or that each 11-line stanza seemed to be about a different thing. First a hand, second a stiff black suit, and third a living doll. Apart from pointing out the obscure 3 times 11-line structure of the poem, I bit my tongue. The final poem was of a different order, being a quietly magnificent text. Without rhyme or metre, it vividly presented a rustic encounter between 2 men as a circumstance in which one of the most profound of philosophical questions, the problem of suffering, is calmly set out, and a potential answer, if we could see all might seem good, gently proposed. It was very frustrating to discover that no one else in the room noticed the presence of this question or its tentative answer in the poem. All they could perceive was the scenery that was supposed to be only the backdrop to the question. I decided to hold my peace again. It struck me that if all these supposed connoisseurs of poetry were unable to penetrate the heart of this poem, it would do them no good for me, who has no reputation in this group for any kind of poetic expertise, but only as a recalcitrant annoyance whose ideas are out of step with modernity, to point out their myopia. Right at the end of the workshop, I had a truncated chance to read out one of my own poems, No Little Thing, which is about the meaning of life. The reaction was varied. 1 or 2 people were very impressed, even though it was very clear that not a single person there really understood what I had written. One particularly imperceptive person said that they liked it very much, even though it was a set of truisms. True to past form, 2 others picked out various motes, which offended their modern sensibilities, while completely failing to appreciate the meaning or form of my text. As time was pressing, I excused myself of the duty of explaining my text to them. A biblical phrase involving pearls and swine hovering in my mind.